Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Almost Normal. I started my period a couple days ago, and usually during this time of the month, I will start to recount certain conversations that I've had with the opposite sex, and I will start to think of all the brilliant things I could have said in that argument that would have destroyed the other person and let me walk away a winner, but I just didn't think of at the time, and I will start to get rageful and be like, shit, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I say that? You know, when you have an argument with someone and then you get on the train and you start to think of everything so brilliant, so cutting, that would have been amazing, so thought through, so just thought out and perfect, but you just didn't have the sort of wherewithal to come up with it at the time. Anyway, I do that just specifically with the conversations I've had with the opposite sex. But anyway, this month was a little bit different. This month, in fact, I decided to start reading this book, and I don't know why I do this, okay? I say that it is basically the equivalent of sitting on the balcony, smoking a cigarette, listening to the Smiths while you are already in the deepest, darkest hole of depression you could ever find yourself in, because it just adds, it sprinkles a little more extra to that emotion, and it just, I don't know, it makes you feel like you're having an out-of-body experience due to that emotion, and it just like lets it all out, and it's sort of slightly what's the word, sadistic, or the other one, masochistic. Is it sadistic or masochistic? Whatever the one is, you know, hurting yourself, it's a little bit like that, but there's something relieving about it. There's something brilliant about it. So anyway, I've been doing that. If you're on your period, read this, you know, actually read this. Read this anyway. Honestly, whether you're a man or a woman, I would read this because it is so crazy and eye-opening, and it just unfolds such a dark side of society that I don't think that we realize really exists. But this girl, or woman, sorry, this woman basically made a fake online personality, and she started to infiltrate a bunch of communities online that are based on men who would consider, I don't know if they would consider themselves incels, but involuntarily celibate. And she infiltrates these conversations, these chat rooms, and she started to learn about them and see all the things that they spoke about, and really started to understand the craziness that went on inside of these sort of Reddit threads and whatever. And she was saying that the things that these men want to do to women, the things that they feel like women are doing to them, are so horrific and so vile that there aren't even words in the English language in order to express these emotions that these people are going through, okay? And so they have even come up with their own vocabulary, okay? They have come up with their own jargon so that when they are talking in these chat rooms, they can just express these emotions with these little words, and people, you know, hundreds and thousands of people, by the way, will understand them immediately. No explanation needed. She is very clear that these people hate women, all right? These men believe that women rule the world, all right? Secretly, men are told that they are the dominant sex, that they are in control. But they are now, after taking the red pill, are now convinced that actually women rule the world. In the shadows, women actually rule the world. And how we do this is through sex. It is by giving or not giving sex. And that puts us in a position of power that is secret and bad, and they hate it. They hate it, and they believe that the fact that they are not getting sex is a power play on women, or by women. They believe that women are ruling the world, ruling the show. But they are told that they are ruling the show. They are victims of a greater conspiracy, okay? They are victims of a huge conspiracy going on, and they fucking hate it. And they fucking hate women too. This book is very interesting. Anyway, I, like a few months ago, in an economics class, was told to make a model, okay? It could have been a model on anything. It could have been a new model for society to follow. It could have been a new model to create a certain type of clothing. It could have been a new model to make the perfect pizza dough recipe. It could have been anything, all right? And so I decided to make a model on what a matriarchal society would look like, because the reality of life is we live in a patriarchal society, okay? No matter what these men feel, we do live in a patriarchal society. Pretty much a majority of the people in power are men. We once tried to put a woman on a banknote and all hell broke loose. The people that tried to put that forward, to process that, were sent death threats, sexual assault threats. They were threatened with their family, everything, because they wanted to put a female on a banknote. After all the men on the banknotes, one woman, just one, and they couldn't take it. Society could not deal with it because we live in a patriarchal society, and that's just that, and I'm sorry, okay? I said what I said. There's no convincing me otherwise. There really is no convincing me otherwise. And I live in the UK and America. Both live in patriarchal societies. And most of the world. Women are not secretly ruling the world, but me just saying that is not going to convince you, alright? I'm not really trying to convince anyone. Just speaking my piece. Anyway, I actually thought it'd be interesting to talk about that presentation I made on the matriarchal society, because that is genuinely putting women in a position of power, which we are not at the moment, but I thought it would be interesting to discuss that and show what would happen and how actually it would deeply benefit men in the long run. So I thought I would just go through this presentation that I made, and yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, I first want to discuss the idea of toxic masculinity. I can never say that word. Toxic masculinity. I think that when people say this term or phrase, men get very offended by it. They take an offense of it. But they shouldn't, because this term is actually in defense of men. It is acknowledging that there is an immense pressure put on men in order to perform in certain aspects of their lives. The patriarchy puts toxic masculinity on men. Be the sole provider. Never show emotion, okay? Boys don't cry. Always be strong, competitive, and dominant, which adds a layer of violence and aggression always. Who's the alpha male? Who can fight who? Who's going to beat up this person? And your worth is tied to your job, and your worth is tied to your income, and your worth is tied to your sexual conquests. There's a reason that the rate in depression, suicide, and loneliness in men is so high, because there is a huge amount of pressure put on them in order to feel like they have succeeded in our society. And with a lot of pressure builds, and things blow up, people lash out, aggression happens, violence happens. If we had a matriarchal model of society, this pressure would completely disappear. I think that if we want to live equally on land, and I believe, can I just say, before I get into it, a matriarchal society is not necessarily women leading. It really isn't, okay? Maybe women take a lot more roles, a lot higher roles in society, but it's not about women being the overlords of men. That's just not what a matriarchal society is about. And you'll see as I explain further, but I just want to preface that by saying, a matriarchal society is not women holding whips, telling men to get on their knees and crawl around and lick the floor. That is just not what a matriarchal society is about. I promise you that. A matriarchal society is very much about the equality of both genders. In a matriarchal society, men are very available to be in lead roles and all of that still. It's just not a pressure on them, okay? It's completely a choice whether they want to or not. In a matriarchal society, being something like a caregiver, being something emotional, would still be held at a very high standard. You would still be praised if that was the lifestyle that you wished. When we say toxic masculinity is harmful, we're actually defending men. We're saying you don't have to perform this impossible version of manhood that leaves you overwhelmed and angry. To start, I'm going to go through some examples of matriarchal societies that exist in the world today that seem to be doing real well, okay? Okay, number one is if I butcher any of these names, I'm really, really sorry. And you can let me know in the comments. I won't take offense. Okay, so number one is Mosuo in China, okay? This is known as the Kingdom of Women. Women lead households, property passes through mothers, and caregiving is shared between men and women. Okay, the Minangkabau in Indonesia. All right, this is the largest matrilineal society today, where women inherit property and senior women give male political leaders. Number three is Akan in Ghana. Property passes through the mother's line and elder women influence political decisions. Number four is Iroquois in North America. Women could appoint or remove male chiefs and community well-being was the focus. And number 5 is the Kasi in India. Property passes to the youngest daughter and caregiving is shared between men and women. The important part about all of these societies is that it is not oppressing men at all, okay? It is not about reversing patriarchy and putting men at the bottom. That's just not what it is. It's about sharing power, building systems, where cooperation is more valuable than dominance. In my presentation, I decided to see what a matriarchal society would look like in the United States. If we took these values and we put them in America. So these are just a few things that would happen, I think, if we started to live on a matriarchal model of society. Care economy valued and paid. Caregiving jobs like teaching, nursing, parenting are paid fairly and respected. Okay, stay-at-home parents get a salary or a tax credit. Shared leadership. Politics and business have gender balance with collaboration at the core. Wealth for public goods. Taxes fund healthcare, childcare, education, community programs. Environmental stewardship. Laws protect ecosystems, planning is long-term. So not short-term rewards and goals like I feel like we are doing right now, which I think is destroying the planet. It's looking more long-term, okay? It's saying, what do we want our planet to look like in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, okay? Flexible gender roles. No stigma for men as caregivers or showing emotion, okay? I think this is an extremely important one. I think that there is such an immense amount of anger in men because they feel like they have been told that if they don't pursue these certain roles, if they don't do these certain things in life, then they are looked down on, they are judged. If they don't fuck a bunch of women, if they don't have really high-powered, high-paid jobs, if they are nurses or caregivers or anything like that, they are looked down on. And I think that some men want to do those jobs. I really do believe that. And I think that in our society, if they're told, hey, if you do that, you're a loser, then they're going to feel anger, you know? Also, there's not enough space for every man to be a political leader. There's not enough space for every man to be in those high-powered positions. And so the ones that aren't able to get there are feeling like losers, okay? They're feeling hard done by. They shouldn't feel this way. It's totally okay to pick another life path, okay? It's totally okay. There should be no judgment to that. There should be absolutely no judgment to that, okay? It should be fair. Everything should be fair. It should be men and women equal, and that should go both ways. Women should be in higher powered jobs, but also men should not be judged if they want to do something more caring. They should not be judged for that. It should be absolutely, completely, it should be encouraged. It should be encouraged. Okay, restorative justice. A legal system focused on repairing harm, not just punishment, okay? I really do believe in this one as well. I think that it is really important that we don't just punish people, that we are able to teach them. We are able to tell them that there is a different way for life, all right? And I think that in a patriarchal society, there is such a, what's the word? Emphasis on the idea of dominance. There's such an emphasis on the idea of dominance. There's such an emphasis on men feeling like to be powerful, they have to be overlording a group of people. And that could be in any system. But prison systems, definitely. I think there's a huge issue with power there. Because I think men are told that if they are really, really dominant, then they are powerful. And that causes a lot of issues, okay? Wars, prisons, schools, everything. There's a lot of issues there. And I think that we should sort of start taking that away and say, you're not more of a man if you have a strong dominance over someone or something. I don't think that should be valued as something that makes you a man. And I think that if you take that idea away, this idea of power, this sort of violent, aggressive idea of power can sort of be faded out slightly. Because yes, maybe due to some biological factors inside men's bodies, yes, possibly the influx of testosterone causes certain emotions to come out more than others, okay, more than the ones that women might experience. But I think it is not helpful to say that, okay, to be a man, to be a powerful man, you need to hold dominance. You need to hold a specific amount of dominance, okay? And then you will be respected. I think that is harmful. And I think there are 100 million other ways in which one could express their emotions, okay? If they are feeling anger, they can express it in a different way and not feel like if they want to be, you know, the alpha male, they have to put other people down. And I think there's such an emphasis on that in our society today, which is just damaging. It's also super stressful for men because if they don't really have that within them, then they feel like they failed. You know, they feel like they are not the alpha male. They feel like they are lesser than. It's ridiculous. There should not be a pressure to be dominant and violent. I believe in the system men are freed. I think they have emotional support, flexible career, and family options. They live in a safer, healthier community where care and cooperation are respected. I drew up a little diagram of the difference between a patriarchal society and a matriarchal society. And a patriarchal society is more of a triangle, okay? It's very hierarchical. There's the little people at the top, the powerful people, and then it sort of fades out to the less powerful people. However, with a matriarchal society, it's more of a circle. All the importance is in the core, and it sort of spreads out evenly to the whole of society. It's not this weird hierarchical thing where people are clambering to get to the top, putting their heels in people's eyeballs in order to climb over them and get to the top. It's just not like that. Anyway, I will just close with this, all right? I think the idea of matriarchal society is very interesting. I don't believe that anyone should have certain gender pressures, and I think that is super damaging, and causes people to be so mad at each other, and causes people to hate each other based on their genders. And I think that there's a lot of societal pressures for both parties, okay? I am not saying that women are, you know, totally the victims of this society. I do not believe that's true, okay? I believe that there are pressures put on both sides. 100%. Unfortunately, the pressures put on men can be a little bit more harmful to women because of what the values are. Okay, the value to be dominant, the value to be violent, the value to be aggressive, to use that testosterone and be a man, okay, and have sex and fight and all of that stuff, you know. The pressures put on women are very different, and I don't believe that there's a lot in that that can be very harmful to men, though obviously there's a whole society online that believes it is. I think that the pressures are very different, okay, and mean very, very different things for the opposite sexes. I think that women are told to be and play certain roles in society, but I don't believe that those roles really affect men in the same way that the men's roles or expected roles affect women, okay? I think there is a lot of violence and fear men have towards women based on these sort of expectations that society has of them. And I don't believe it's healthy, okay? And I don't believe that it's right. And I think that this world could be so fantastic if we just worked together, okay? And we focused a lot more on caring. You know, we focused a lot more on the idea of sharing, all right? And it's not such a hierarchical system. I really do believe that this world would be a better place. I think that we would focus more on the environment. I think we would focus more on future generations. I think there would be less anger towards each other. I think there would be less wars, probably. To shift values, you know? And I just want to say, again, I feel like I've said it 1,000 times, I don't believe a matriarchal society is about oppressing men. I do not believe it is about dominating men. That's not what it is at all, okay? It's just shifting values. It's shifting values. It's saying, hey, maybe we should be focusing on other stuff. Maybe we should be putting less energy into making sure each gender does the roles that we want it to do. You know, less energy on putting people down if they feel like they want to live a different kind of way. Less of that. And more of a sort of all-round caring, circular situation where people have complete control, complete autonomy over their lives. And no one feels like they have a better say on what someone else should do. There should be less rules, there should be less expectation. And that's just what I think, you know? And I think that these sort of scary chat rooms and this violence towards women is really, really fueled by the society that we live in. I really do think so. This is a very broad subject, okay? This is a very broad subject. This is sort of just my initial thoughts. But yeah, reading this book is scary, for sure. And I think there are ways that we can fix this, you know, and I don't think it's going to be an overnight fix, and I don't think we're suddenly going to have a matriarchal society. I really just don't think so. I don't think people are prepared for that, because there are men in power, okay? And those men are doing great, you know? The men in power are doing great because they are succeeding in their eyes. They are succeeding in what society expects them to do. And so they don't want change because they feel like they're in a big position of power and they don't feel like they're struggling at all. And those are the people that we would need to convince to change things, and I just don't think that's going to happen. So obviously this is a slightly unrealistic expectation of mine. It's not even an expectation, it's just sort of a YouTube video. But yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you guys for listening. I feel much better. And yeah, I love you guys. And, you know, I don't think there should be wars against genders. I just don't think so. I think everyone should just be so autonomous over their own lives, live however they wish, and that's it. And I love you guys, okay? And thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't subscribed, please make sure you do. It's super helpful to me, and you can see every time I post anything. And yeah. All right, I'm gonna go now. I love you very much. I will see you next time. Okay.